Our first story is the Latoya Ammons Possession Case, Gary, Indiana, 2011.
You know how sometimes a house just feels wrong the moment you walk inside? That's what Latoya Ammons and her mother Rosa Campbell faced in 2011 when they moved into a plain rental home on Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. On the surface, it looked like any other modest Midwestern house, but it didn't take long for the warning signs to show. The first thing that hit them wasn't footsteps or voices, it was flies. Swarms of fat, black flies covering their screened-in porch in the middle of an Indiana winter. Rosa would sweep them away, kill dozens, and think she'd gotten rid of them. By the next morning, the porch would be crawling with them again. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate creaks across the living room, even when no one was there. Doors opening on their own. Rosa once saw a dark figure pacing back and forth in an empty room, its outline flickering in the corner of her vision. When she went to check, it was gone. But on the floor was a single wet boot print. It escalated from unsettling to terrifying in a matter of weeks. Latoya's daughter, only 12 years old at the time, levitated in her bed one night while staying over at a friend's house. She came down slowly while her mother and grandmother prayed over her, and afterward, the girl remembered nothing. Her sons began changing too. The youngest would roll his eyes back until only the whites showed, growling in a deep voice that wasn't his own. "It's time to die. I will kill you." The oldest flew into violent rages, once being picked up and hurled by something invisible across the room. Doctors, police officers, and social workers all witnessed pieces of what was happening. One medical professional swore the youngest boy walked backward up a wall in a hospital examination room, like gravity had forgotten him. Out of desperation, the family turned to the church. Father Michael Maginot performed 3 exorcisms, each one more intense than the last. By the third, Latoya said something lifted. The weight, the darkness, whatever it was. They left the house soon after. The documentary Demon House later looked into it, but for everyone close to the case, from police to priests, there's still no neat explanation, just the memory of that house and what lived in it.
Our next story, the Villisca Axe Murder House, Villisca, Iowa, 1912. June 9th, 1912, Villisca, Iowa. Picture a tiny farming town where everyone knows everyone else, the kind of place where doors are rarely locked. That night, things were peaceful. Church had just let out from Children's Day, and the Moore family headed home with 2 visiting girls who were friends of their daughter. Somewhere after midnight, the peace ended. An intruder was already inside or slipped in through an unlocked door. He waited until the family slept. Then, using Josiah Moore's own axe, he began killing. First Josiah and his wife Sarah, then their children, then the 2 visiting girls. It wasn't just the violence that chilled investigators later. The killer seemed calm, methodical. He covered the mirrors in the house with cloth and placed blankets over the victims' faces. In the kitchen, he prepared himself a plate of leftover food and didn't touch it. The axe, cleaned of blood, was placed neatly in the guest room where the girls had been sleeping. When neighbors came the next morning, worried because the Moores hadn't started their chores, they opened the door to find silence and the horror upstairs. 8 people murdered in their beds, 6 of them children. No one was ever convicted. Over the decades, suspects were named: a traveling minister, a jealous neighbor, even a serial train rider, but nothing stuck. In all that time, the house has barely aged. It still stands on that quiet street, soaked with history. Visitors today swear they've heard children whispering or seen shadow figures dart through hallways where no one stands. Some leave shaken, refusing to re-enter. Others stay overnight as part of ghost hunts, but few sleep through the night. Next story is The Watcher, Westfield, New Jersey, 2014. When Maria and Derek Broaddus bought 657 Boulevard in 2014, they thought they'd made it. The 6-bedroom colonial in Westfield, New Jersey was perfect, sitting in one of the safest towns in America. They poured their savings into it. But before they could even move in, the letters began. The first one arrived in the mail, handwritten in neat, almost childlike script. It welcomed them to the neighborhood and then claimed, "My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s. My father watched in the 1960s. Now it is my time." The writer signed it as The Watcher. The letters didn't stop. Each one grew more personal, mentioning the Broaddus children by nickname, knowing details about where they played in the yard, telling them to bring me young blood. In one letter, The Watcher warned, "Have they found what's in the walls yet?" The police suspected a neighbor, maybe someone obsessed with the house's history, but DNA swabs from the envelopes didn't match anyone tested. Private detectives combed through property records. Former owners admitted they had gotten a couple of strange letters too, but nothing this aggressive. Even friends started to wonder if the Broadduses were making it up, but the fear in the family was real. They never moved in. Years later, after renting it out, they sold the house at a huge loss. The new owners didn't report any new letters, but the Broadduses still don't know who stalked their dream home or why.
The Phone Stalker, Washington State, 2007. For the Kuykendall family in Washington State, it started with one phone call in 2007. The voice on the other end was low, mocking, and somehow personal. They brushed it off at first, but then came another call, and another, and another. The stalker seemed to know everything, what the family had said just minutes earlier in the privacy of their own home, what they were wearing, what they were eating. Sometimes the calls came from blocked numbers, and sometimes, horrifyingly, from the cell phone of the Kuykendall's teenage daughter, even when it was turned off, battery removed. The family changed numbers, switched phones, went to the police. Investigators traced the calls and messages, but every single time the signal seemed to loop back to the family's own devices, as if the calls were coming from inside. The stalker left voicemails with recordings of the Kuykendall's own conversations and made chilling threats toward their lives. For months, the harassment didn't stop. Then, just as suddenly, it was over. No arrest, no explanation. Just silence. To this day, no one knows how the stalker did it, or if they still watch from the shadows.
The Utah Murder-Suicide, Springville, Utah, 2014. In 2014, neighbors of the Strack family noticed the home in Springville, Utah had gone eerily quiet. When police entered, they found 5 bodies, Benjamin and Christy Strack and 3 of their 4 children, lying together. At first glance, there were no signs of violence. Toxicology tests later revealed high levels of methadone and other drugs. It became clear the parents had overdosed themselves and given the 2 youngest children deadly doses as well. The oldest son's death was different, his role unclear, whether willing or reluctant. Friends and family said Benjamin and Christy had grown obsessed with the idea that the end of the world was coming. They talked about escaping before it happened. Investigators found writings and clues pointing toward apocalyptic fears and religious extremism. The 4th child, a teen daughter, was away at a sleepover that night, likely the only reason she survived. She returned to a home forever changed, with no answers that could undo the choice her parents had made. It's a tragedy that still casts a shadow in Springville, not because of ghosts, but because of how fear itself became the deadliest thing in that house.